The throne chamber of the Veyari dominion glowed with soft golden light. Tall crystal pillars lined the walls and the air smelled of burning incense. Queen Sirenia of the Veyari sat high on her throne, her dark robes flowing like waves around her. She was young by the standards of her people but already famous across the galaxy for her sharp mind and cold rule. She believed herself untouchable. Stories had reached her court about strange warriors, humans who were said to fight like no other species. They were described as fearless, tireless, and unbreakable. They came from a death world, a planet so harsh that even survival there was a battle every day. The tales claimed they could endure wounds that would kill others and stand against armies without retreating. The queen listened to these stories with an amused smile. To her, they were nothing more than legends told by frightened merchants or desperate soldiers who wanted excuses for their failures. Humans, she said one evening as her council gathered, are only myths. Old words meant to scare children and weak soldiers. Do not bring them into serious matters again. Her advisors shifted uneasily. Lord Kale, her chief strategist, bowed and spoke carefully. Majesty, the archives of 3 ancient empires speak of them. Records show battles where humans turned tides against impossible odds. Even the elder races gave them respect. The queen raised a hand, silencing him. Respect for ghosts, Kale. I do not fear shadows. Her generals nodded quickly, afraid to disagree. But unease lingered. Even if the queen dismissed the legends, whispers in the lower ranks grew louder. The Veyari dominion had stretched its borders too far, too fast. Whole sectors had been conquered, but rebellions and raids were spreading. Strange raiders struck without warning, freeing slaves and destroying supply lines. They fought differently than the usual enemies, swift, precise, and merciless. The queen called for a war council. Maps filled the great table before her, glowing with marks of recent attacks. These raiders are no different from the others, she declared. We will crush them as we always have. I will lead the campaign myself to remind the galaxy of Veyari strength. Her generals bowed, though Kale's face remained troubled. That night, alone in her private chambers, Sirenia walked to the tall window overlooking the capital city. Light stretched far below, proof of her empire's strength. Yet her mind replayed the stories she had laughed at. A warrior who could not be broken. A fighter who could stand against beasts, machines, and armies. Could such a being truly exist? She shook the thought away. Legends are for poets, she whispered. Reality is mine to rule. Still, doubt had planted a tiny seed in her heart. The following week, the Queen's fleet prepared for war. Hundreds of warships gathered above the capital world, their dark hulls gleaming under the system's twin suns. Soldiers cheered when they saw her flagship, the Eternal Crown, rise into orbit. The Queen would lead them, an honor and a promise of victory. On the bridge of her ship, she studied the enemy reports. The raiders moved fast, striking colonies and freeing captives. Witnesses described them as small in number but impossibly stubborn. They did not retreat even when surrounded. Their leader was said to be taller than most Veyari, with eyes like fire. The Queen smiled coldly. A leader who inspires hope is the most dangerous enemy. We will find him, break him, and end this foolish rebellion. Kyle stepped closer, lowering his voice. Majesty, some say this leader may be human. The Queen turned to him sharply. You still cling to fairy tales, old friend? I only advise caution, Kale replied. If there is even a chance. But she cut him off. Then I will see for myself. If a human exists, I will look into his eyes and prove the galaxy wrong. Her fleet jumped to the frontier. The planet of Tarvan IV hung before them, scarred by battle. Smoke rose from cities below and broken ships drifted in orbit. Raiders had struck only days before. Veyari soldiers were already on the ground, struggling to retake control. The Queen descended with her guard, determined to witness the fight. Streets burned as she walked through them, her golden armor gleaming. Her presence alone lifted her soldiers' spirits. Majesty, cried one captain, falling to his knee. The raiders are fierce. They fight as if death means nothing. We thought them few, but they strike like many. The Queen raised her chin. Where is their leader? The captain hesitated. He vanishes and reappears. But rumors say he is not Veyari, not any race we know. Sirenia's eyes narrowed. She felt something stir inside her. Not fear, but curiosity. That night, from a ruined balcony, she watched as the battle continued in the distance. Flashes lit the horizon and the thunder of artillery shook the ground. She saw her soldiers struggle against an enemy that moved like shadows. Then, For only a heartbeat she spotted him. Far beyond the fire lines, through the smoke, a single figure stood tall among the chaos. He wore no shining armor, only battered plates and a torn cloak. In his hands was a blade taken from the fallen. Around him, freed slaves rallied, fighting with desperate hope. Even at that distance, his presence was undeniable. Her breath caught for the first time in years. When she returned to her command tent, Kyle waited. His face was pale. Majesty, reports confirm. The enemy leader bleeds red like us. He is human. The Queen stared at him, silent. Then she laughed, though the sound was hollow. So the galaxy's legends walk among us? Very well. If he is human, I will see the truth with my own eyes. I will bring him before me. Her generals looked uncertain, but none dared argue. Orders were given. The Dominion would not rest until this warrior was captured alive. As the Queen closed her eyes that night, the image of the lone figure burned in her mind. The way he stood unshaken amid fire and ruin was unlike anything she had ever seen. For the first time, Serenia felt a whisper of doubt. Perhaps legends were not just stories after all. But she pushed the thought away and whispered to herself, "Tomorrow, I will face him, and then I will know." The morning sun glinted off the jagged mountains of Tarvan 4, casting long shadows across the battlefield. Smoke rose from the cities below, twisting into the clear sky like black snakes. Queen Serenia stood on a high ridge, her golden armor shining even under the pale light. Her eyes scanned the horizon, searching for the human warrior she had come to witness. Reports had reached her that he was near the colony's central city, where raiders had taken control of the outer defenses. Even from a distance, she could feel the tension in the air. The human was said to be small in number, but somehow overwhelming. Soldiers who had faced him spoke in hushed tones, as if mentioning his name aloud might summon him. Serenia's guards flanked her silently. The Queen's presence brought discipline, but even they were uneasy. They had never seen anyone like this human, who was rumored to be unstoppable. "Majesty," whispered Kale, stepping beside her. "Scouts report that he is leading the freed captives. They fight as if the human gives them strength. Ordinary soldiers cannot inspire such loyalty." Serenia frowned. "Loyalty is not fear. Perhaps he is clever. Or perhaps lucky." She turned her attention back to the battlefield. Movement caught her eye. A group of soldiers had advanced too far and were surrounded by raiders. Their weapons flashed in the sunlight, but it was clear they were outmatched. Then she saw him. The human emerged from the smoke like a shadow. His armor was battered, covered in scratches and scorch marks. He held a long, curved blade, the steel glinting in the sun. Around him, the freed captives rallied, following his movements with precision and courage that seemed impossible for untrained fighters. The Queen's breath caught. This was no ordinary warrior. Even standing at a distance, he radiated authority and power. His movements were fluid, almost effortless. Every strike, every step, every command seemed precise. It was as if he knew exactly where danger would come from before it arrived. "Is that him?" Kale whispered. Serenia's eyes narrowed. "It must be. Watch carefully. I will decide for myself." The battle grew chaotic. Raiders surrounded the group, firing energy weapons that streaked across the sky like comets. Yet the human moved through them, striking with deadly accuracy. One raider lunged from the left, aiming to strike him down. The human twisted, catching the raider's wrist and throwing him into a pile of debris. Another attacked from behind, only to be thrown into a burning vehicle. Even the Queen's seasoned soldiers gasped. The human's skill was extraordinary, almost inhuman. Yet what impressed Serenia most was his calmness. There was no panic in his movements, no fear. He was focused, almost serene, as if the chaos around him existed in slow motion. A scout approached the Queen, trembling. "Majesty, he is alone. Only a small group of freed captives is with him. They cannot possibly survive long against the raiders' numbers." Serenia's lips pressed together. Numbers mean nothing when courage is unmatched. Observe closely. This human is more than what the legends say. Hours passed. The human continued to fight with relentless energy. He moved from street to street, liberating prisoners and driving raiders back. Yet he was careful, never careless. His strategies seemed simple but effective, guiding the captives to safe areas while keeping the raiders off balance. The Queen's curiosity grew with every move. Legends had described humans as resilient, clever, and fearless, but seeing one in action was something else entirely. It was real. Every story she had dismissed seemed to pale in comparison to the figure before her. She spoke quietly. Almo. The morning mist hung low over the ruins of Tarvin 4. Broken buildings cast long shadows and the scent of smoke still lingered in the air. Queen Sirenia stood on the ridge once more, her golden armor gleaming faintly under the rising sun. She could barely contain her anticipation. Today she would finally see the human warrior up close, not just in the distance or in stories whispered by frightened soldiers. Kyle stood beside her, looking tense. Majesty, scouts report movement in the plaza below. He is not alone. Some captives are still with him, but the rest, they are reorganizing. Sirenia's eyes narrowed. Good, let them gather. We will watch and learn. He must not escape. Her war council had devised a plan. This time they would attempt to capture the human alive. He had proven himself capable of extraordinary feats, but even the strongest could be trapped with strategy. The queen did not doubt his skill. She respected it. But she also knew that she, Sirenia, had faced impossible odds before, and emerged victorious. Her personal fleet hovered silently above, waiting for her signal. Soldiers readied their weapons below. The trap was set. Down on the plaza, the human moved with the same quiet confidence as the day before. He tended to the wounded, gave instructions to the freed captives, and checked the perimeter. Nothing escaped his attention. Every corner of the plaza, every shadow between the ruined walls, was scanned carefully. He was ordinary in appearance, tall, with dark hair and strong features, but the energy he radiated made him larger than life. Even the captives, who had never seen a trained soldier before, followed his every move with unshakable trust. The queen watched from the ridge, her heart beating faster than it had in years. She had seen leaders before, but none commanded respect like this. Even the fiercest generals of her own dominion would have struggled to keep such loyalty in a chaotic situation. Majesty, Kale whispered. Do you see? He is calm, precise, almost untouchable. He moves as if the chaos around him is slower than real time. Sirenia's eyes did not leave the human. Yes, and he is clever. He is not just strong, he is smart. Every move is planned, yet it looks effortless. This is no ordinary fighter. Suddenly, the sound of movement from above caught the human's attention. He glanced skyward, eyes sharp and calculating. The Queen's fleet had begun their descent, and yet, instead of panic, a calm determination settled over him. He adjusted the position of the captives, signaling them to form a defensive line, and drew his blade. Sirenia's heart raced. She had expected him to flee or to panic, but instead he prepared. He faced impossible numbers and a fleet of ships above, and still he stood firm. Kale's voice was tight with tension. Majesty, he is preparing for battle. He knows the Dominion is here. We should proceed carefully. Sirenia shook her head. No, let us see his true power. If he is as the legends say, he will survive, and I will witness it. The first wave of soldiers descended. They were disciplined, trained in combat techniques refined over centuries. Their weapons glinted as they approached the plaza. The human did not wait. He struck first. A soldier lunged at him, aiming for the chest, but the human twisted, catching the attacker's wrist and throwing him into a ruined wall. Another swung a weapon from behind, only to be blocked and pushed back with a single powerful movement. Every attack the soldiers attempted was met with calculated defense or precise counter. The Queen's breath caught. She had seen trained warriors fight, but this was something else. His movements were smooth, efficient, and deadly. He was not reckless. He used the enemy's strength against them. Kale whispered almost reverently, Majesty.
He is human.
And yet he fights like a master of war alone against many. Sirenia did not speak. She could only watch, fascinated. Every blow he landed, every move he made, confirmed what she had begun to suspect. The legends were real. As the soldiers advanced in coordinated waves, the human did not falter. He used the terrain to his advantage, pushing attackers into traps created by the rubble of the ruined city. At one point, he vaulted over a broken wall, rolling into the midst of a small group and disarming each one in a series of swift, precise movements. Even the captives, now emboldened by his skill, joined the fight. They were untrained, but their confidence in him gave them courage beyond their experience. They used crude weapons and improvised shields, following his commands perfectly. The Queen's eyes narrowed. She admired his skill, but she also knew this could not last forever. Numbers and strategy could eventually overwhelm even the most capable warrior. She signaled the fleet to descend closer. Soldiers prepared nets and energy restraints designed to immobilize even the strongest. The trap was set. The human sensed the shift immediately. He looked up at the descending fleet, his eyes scanning every ship and every line of soldiers. A small smile flickered across his face, not of arrogance but of recognition. He knew he was outnumbered, but he had survived worse. He signaled the captives to retreat to cover, then moved forward, ready to meet the challenge. The first energy net shot across the plaza. The human leaped to the side with inhuman agility, landing on the rubble and rolling smoothly. A group of soldiers advanced, swinging heavy weapons. He dodged, countered, and incapacitated them in seconds. The queen leaned forward, unable to hide her fascination. Even with her forces prepared and waiting, the human was not only surviving, he was controlling the battlefield. "Impossible," she whispered. "He is only one, and yet he commands the flow of battle." Kale remained silent, knowing there was no argument she would accept. He could only watch as the human warrior proved himself once again. Finally, the human paused. He surveyed the battlefield, catching his breath, though only slightly. Sweat and dirt streaked his face, but his eyes burned with determination. He had repelled the initial attack, but the Dominion's forces were relentless. Serenya's hand rested on the hilt of her ceremonial blade. She had made her decision. If he survived the next few hours, she would face him herself. She needed to see him closer, to understand fully the warrior who had changed the battlefield. The human turned toward the retreating captives and spoke softly. They obeyed immediately, moving into safer positions. Then he faced the remaining soldiers, standing tall and unafraid, a single figure in a sea of enemies. "Majesty," Kale said quietly, "he will not yield." "If we strike now?" Serena shook her head. "No, I will see him alive. Let him show his strength. I will witness the truth." As the sun set behind the mountains, painting the sky with hues of red and gold, the battlefield quieted. Most of the Dominion soldiers had regrouped, realizing that this human was no ordinary target. The captives were safe for now, and the human stood among them, scanning the ruins, alert to every possible threat. Serenia felt a strange mixture of respect, curiosity, and caution. The stories she had dismissed as legends were not only real, they were understated. This human was more than a warrior. He was a force, a leader, and a survivor. Her heart raced as she considered the next step. She would send a team to capture him. She wanted to see him, question him, and understand how a human could become such a legend. But even as she planned, she knew this would not be easy. He had survived battles against far greater odds than any she had faced, and he would not surrender willingly. The queen turned from the ridge, her mind set. Tomorrow she would face him herself. She would see the human warrior up close and finally know the truth behind the legends. For the first time, Queen Serenia felt the thrill of genuine curiosity. Legends had always existed in stories, but now she understood what it meant to witness one alive. And when she did, the galaxy would know that humans were not just myths. They were reality. The day broke quietly over Tarvin 4, but the calm was deceiving. Queen Serenia's fleet hovered above the city ruins, sleek warships reflecting the first light of dawn. The battlefield from yesterday had been cleared, but today's events would decide everything. The queen had made her choice. She would confront the human warrior herself. Her advisors and generals prepared nervously. The human had survived impossible odds yesterday. Soldiers spoke in hushed tones, some with fear, others with admiration. He had outsmarted trained Dominion forces, led a group of freed captives with precision, and struck down dozens of attackers without hesitation. The legends were true, but the queen wanted proof firsthand, and she was not willing to rely on stories or distant observation. "Majesty," Kale said quietly as he stood beside her on the ridge. "He is skilled, yes, but he is still mortal. We can capture him if we act carefully." Serenia's eyes were fixed on the human below. He moved with ease among the ruins, checking defenses, helping the captives, and scanning the horizon. She felt something she had never experienced before. Curiosity and respect combined with a desire to test him personally. "I do not doubt his skill," she said softly, "but we cannot learn anything unless we see him face to face. Today I will test the legend." The queen's plan was precise. She would descend to the plaza with her personal guard, and the human would have no warning. The goal was not to kill him but to challenge him, to see if he truly was as formidable as the galaxy whispered. Soldiers prepared nets, restraints, and tranquilizers, but the Queen doubted she would need them. She wanted to witness the full measure of his abilities. As the fleet moved into position, the human continued to direct the captives below. He had no idea that the news spread across the Dominion faster than any fleet could travel. The Queen had faced the human warrior herself, and the stories of the encounter ignited whispers and speculation throughout her empire. Soldiers, merchants, and citizens all spoke of the human who had survived the trial, who had bested trained warriors and inspired courage where there had been fear. The tales were no longer legends, they were a reality that could not be ignored. Queen Sirenia observed the growing unrest with a mixture of concern and curiosity. Her empire's rivals sensed weakness, the subtle cracks in her authority caused by the unexpected human. Raids intensified along the borders, and distant enemies began probing the Dominion's defenses, testing the strength of her fleets and armies. Yet she did not panic. She had seen the human warrior in action and understood something crucial. Humans were more than just fighters. They were teachers, strategists, and symbols of courage. Kale approached her in the throne room, reports in hand. "Majesty, the raids are increasing. Our forces are stretched thin. If we cannot act decisively, the Dominion could face serious losses." Sirenia nodded slowly, her mind focused. "We will act decisively, Kale, but we will not act as we have before. We must learn from the human. If he can turn small groups into unstoppable forces, we can apply the same principles across the Dominion." Meanwhile, on Tarvin 4, the human prepared his small band of freed captives. He had survived countless attacks, but he knew the Dominion would not give up easily. Soldiers would come again, stronger and smarter, expecting to overwhelm him with numbers and firepower. He needed to be ready. The human surveyed the plaza, noting every broken wall, collapsed building, and potential choke point. He spoke to the captives in calm, measured tones. "Stay close. Follow my lead. Trust your instincts, but listen to my commands. We will survive this, not because we are strong, but because we are smart." The captives nodded, their trust in him absolute. They had seen his skill, his courage, and the way he protected them even under impossible odds. He was more than a leader. He was a shield and a guide, and they would follow him to the end. Back in the Queen's war room, Sirenia planned her next move carefully. She did not intend to kill the human. That would be foolish. Instead, she would bring him to her, alive, to study him, understand him, and perhaps even turn his abilities to the Dominion's advantage. But first, she needed to corner him. The fleet launched into orbit, and soldiers descended to the planet in carefully coordinated waves. Their objective was simple: capture the human no matter what. They were equipped with nets, energy restraints, and tranquilizers, but the Queen knew that these measures might not suffice. Humans were unpredictable, and this one had already proven himself capable of extraordinary feats. Kyle watched her closely. "Majesty, are you certain this is wise? If he resists, we could lose many soldiers. He has already demonstrated abilities beyond expectation." Sirenia's eyes were steely. "I am certain. If he resists, so be it. But he must be captured alive. His skills, his tactics, his leadership, these are too valuable to destroy. And we will see what humans are truly capable of." The battle began in the early morning, just as the sun peeked over the mountains. The human and his small band had fortified the plaza, using rubble and broken buildings to their advantage. They were outnumbered 100 to 1, but strategy and courage often outweighed sheer numbers. The Dominion soldiers advanced, disciplined and precise, but the human anticipated their moves. He signaled the captives to occupy higher ground and narrow pathways, creating natural choke points. When the soldiers reached the plaza, they were met with traps, ambushes, and sudden counterattacks. Even Queen Sirenia, observing from a ridge, was impressed. He moved with fluid grace, striking with calculated efficiency. His leadership turned a group of ordinary captives into a cohesive, fearless unit, capable of holding off trained soldiers. Hours passed. Soldiers fell, not from fear or cowardice, but from being outmaneuvered. The human did not tire, his stamina seemingly endless. He used every advantage the terrain offered, forcing the Dominion forces to adapt constantly. From above, the Queen's fleet fired down energy beams and grenades, but the human anticipated the strikes, moving his team to safety with precision timing. He countered with improvised attacks, using fallen debris to disable enemy vehicles and weapons. Kale whispered in awe, "Majesty, he is incredible. Even with our forces, he turns the battle in his favor." Serenia nodded slowly. She understood now why legends had formed around humans. Their strength was not just in the body, but in the mind, the ability to adapt, to inspire, to survive, and to lead. By midday, the Dominion forces began to falter. Their confidence had been shattered by repeated failures, and even seasoned commanders questioned their orders. Soldiers who had never faced humans before looked to the Queen for guidance, and she realized something critical. She could not rely solely on conventional tactics. She needed to witness the human firsthand. She would descend herself, unarmed if necessary, to see the full measure of his abilities. If humans were truly capable of this, the knowledge could reshape the Dominion, and perhaps the galaxy itself. The human paused, noticing a lull in the attacks. He scanned the battlefield, calculating the next move. Soldiers approached from multiple directions, but he remained calm. Every step, every motion was deliberate. He had survived before, and he would survive again. A Dominion commander shouted orders, and a coordinated assault was launched. Yet the human moved like water, flowing around every obstacle, anticipating each strike. Captives and allies followed his guidance, moving seamlessly in formation. Serenia descended slowly, her golden armor gleaming in the sun. Soldiers formed a protective circle around her as she approached the human directly. The human noticed her immediately. For a moment he did not move. Their eyes met, and something unspoken passed between them, a recognition of skill, of courage, of determination. Serenia spoke first. "I have watched you. You have survived impossible odds and turned the battlefield in your favor. Tell me, how do you do it?" The human lowered his blade slightly. "I do what must be done. I protect those who cannot protect themselves. I fight with everything I have because it is necessary. Not for glory, not for fear." The Queen nodded slowly. She understood now. The human's power came not just from skill or strength, but from an unbreakable will, a spirit that refused to yield in the face of impossible odds. Kyle, watching from behind, whispered, "Majesty, he could change the outcome of the entire Dominion if we learn from him." The human glanced at the remaining soldiers, then back at the Queen. "I will not surrender," he said simply, "but I will not fight you unless forced. My goal is to survive and protect the innocent, nothing more." Serenia studied him for a long moment. She realized that she had found more than a warrior. She had found an example of human ingenuity, resilience, and courage. He was not a threat to be destroyed, but a force to be understood and respected. "Very well," she said finally. "We will not kill you today, but you will come with me. I wish to understand the humans of whom legends are told." The human hesitated, assessing her sincerity, then nodded slightly. He did not lower his guard completely, but he accepted the Queen's command for now. As the Dominion soldiers regrouped and withdrew from the plaza, the human led the captives safely to a more secure location. He had survived yet again against overwhelming odds. Queen Serenia watched silently, her respect deepening with every movement. She realized the truth the galaxy had long ignored. Humans were not just legends. They were reality, and when driven by purpose, they could achieve the impossible. Their courage, intelligence, and determination could turn the tide of wars and change empires. For the first time, Serenia considered that humans might not be conquered. They might be allies, teachers, or even leaders in their own right. The war that had followed the initial trial had proven one thing beyond doubt. Underestimating humans was the greatest mistake any ruler could make. As night fell over Tarvin 4, the battlefield was quiet once more. Soldiers tended to their wounded, captives rested, and the human surveyed his surroundings with quiet vigilance. Queen Serenia descended to stand beside him, not as an enemy, but as a witness. "You have proven yourself," she said quietly. "The legends, they did not do you justice. You are more than a story. You are the truth behind it." The human regarded her calmly. "I fight for what is necessary. That is all. The rest, the stories, the legends, they are not mine to claim." Serenia nodded, understanding the depth of his words. Humans were not seeking fame or recognition. They sought to act, to endure, and to protect. In that moment, the Queen knew the galaxy would never see humans the same way again. And she, too, would never underestimate them again. The dawn on Tarvin 4 was quiet, almost peaceful. The ruins of yesterday's battlefield were bathed in soft golden light. Queen Serenia stood at the edge of the plaza, her armor catching the first rays of the sun. Beside her, the human warrior observed the city calmly, as if the chaos of the past days had never touched him. It had been hours since the Dominion forces had withdrawn. Soldiers tended to their wounded, captives were guided to safety, and the human had proven beyond doubt his exceptional skill and courage. For Queen Serenia, the events of the last few days had changed her perspective entirely. Humans, we